Also a warm welcome from my side. Do you want to learn how to create your own layer in mimoLive, and therefore you need some tools. mimoLive actually uses technology by Apple. It's called Quartz Composer, and there is an editor for that, and we just use the files that editor is creating to run the graphics in mimoLive. And each layer is a self-contained Quartz Composer document. And so you need, the first thing we will need is the Quartz Composer editor. And where can you get it from? We need you to actually, the application comes from Apple. So this is a developer tool by Apple. And so you need to register as a developer at Apple. So to do so, you can go to developer.apple.com. So you can join free the developer program. And once you are logged into your developer account, then there is a download section where Apple is providing you with some tools to develop applications. We are interested in the Quartz Composer, and you can find it in the More button, More section of in the upper right corner. Then you will get this the complete library of all applications and all releases Apple ever did. So you can search for Quartz, and you will find additional tools for Xcode. You can download this additional tools set. There are some applications in it, but we are interested in the Quartz Composer. Everything else is actually installed in already in macOS. Smart people develop additional plugin. Actually, those smart people were at Facebook. Actually, it adds some nice features and also fixes some bugs. So I highly recommend it that you download this as well. You can find the plugin at github.com Facebook archive/origami. And once you're on this page at GitHub, you find the release here. There's one, Origami 2.2. And once you download, this is an installer. It will ask you for the permissions to install some plugins in the system. And unfortunately, this installer installs the application, installs itself to the wrong place. And once you start Quartz Composer, it actually complains about that. So you may move the files to the right spot up front if you want to. So the installer actually installs the plugin on your hard disk and the root library folder in graphics and Quartz Composer plugins. In this case, we have our own here, but after the installation, there will be some more files, and I will show you where they belong to. So you go to Go in Finder, go to Folder, go to your users library. That's if you start with a tilde /library, then you will end up in your users library folder. That's another one. And there also should be a graphics folder. If it's not already there, then you need to create it and add the plugin to Quartz Composer patches. And here we go, that's the right files. Quartz, it's origami.plugin and some files for Origami itself. Mainly those are demos, however. So finally, you already saw that Lua plugin. We find that there is in Quartz Composer, there is a JavaScript plugin, so you can write JavaScript. However, we found that this is really buggy and crashes mimoLive a lot. So we replaced it with our own scripting plugin that runs Lua, because Lua is very lightweight and fast scripting language, very easy to learn, and it's often used in in gaming engines actually. So the Lua plugin you can find also at github.com/boinx/QCLua, and there's also a release. You can download that directly, the plugin itself, and this plugin goes into the root folder of your hard drive, library, again graphics, and Quartz Composer plugins. So don't get confused about Quartz Composer patches and Quartz Composer plugins. In older times, Quartz Composer used to search the plugins in patches. This is where the Origami installs itself, and that's the correct folder name for the Origami plugin. And our Lua plugin needs to be in Quartz Composer plugins. So now that we installed those things, we can start Quartz Composer and create our first layer. So are there any questions until now? So actually I can't see any questions.
Can you put the link to the GitHub in the chat, please?
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you.
Oliver, can you do that while I'm carrying on?
Can I ask you a question, guys?
Sure.
Since I updated my macOS to Catalina, when I start mimoLive, he said that cannot open QCLua because it cannot comes from an authorized something. Wait.
Authorized developer.
Yeah, exactly. I cannot open QCLua plugin because Apple cannot verify the malware presence. It's saying it needed to update the software. So please contact your developer. There is
okay.
Yeah.
That's because of code signing. And unfortunately, I didn't was confronted until now with this.
Okay.
So I need to look into
well, you
that.
can, I think you can just option click and use the open command from the Finder.
Okay.
And
then it also asks you, this is not valid, but you can still open it.
Okay.
So maybe that will help. Okay, so for the first layer for mimoLive, I started the Quartz Composer application, and I get a bunch of templates, but we're going with a blank template. So I create a new blank composition, and unfortunately sometimes Quartz Composer will crash here because of the Origami plugin. So I found out that the Origami plugin wants us to create a new Origami file at first, but once we did that once, it let us create a blank document again. Anyways, so once you start and create it in a document, you are presented with both windows. On the left side, you see the editor window. This is our editor to create the logic for the layer. And on the right-hand side, you see that's the canvas that is actually the output of that layer. It's where we draw things to. And to draw on the output, we are going to use a certain patch. So in the patch library, you can find that with the upper left button toolbar. There are a lot of patches that Quartz Composer provides. and some of them are rendering graphics to the screen, some are manipulating values or images. So for first drawing experience, we want to use a billboard patch. Billboard patches are just rendering images straight to the canvas. And you can tell that it's a render patch because it's blue. Blue patches are drawing to the screen. Currently it can't, or you can't see anything in the canvas because this billboard doesn't have any inputs and any information what it should render. So we want to use a text, for example, and the text needs to be converted to an image because we can only render images to screen. So there's a patch image. Actually, it's called string. No, it's called image with string. So here we go. Image with string. The image with string patch will generate from a string an image. So this is a patch that has a lot of inputs. So all the inputs are always on the left side, and the outputs of such a patch is always on the right side. So this patch will output an image, and we want to connect this output to that input of the billboard so that the billboard knows what image to draw. And you do that by simply click and drag the spaghetti here, and you already can see that it prints hello world on this checkerboard. So the checkerboard is kind of important because this means that the layer will be transparent in mimoLive. So you don't want to render over the program out you already have. So the layer is actually adding to the program out. And here you have it. So this image with string patch can be inspected. And there are some options. Actually, I need to select it, of course. Here we go. So this is a text I can change, for example, to mimoLive Zoom meeting. And now you see the text already changes also on the screen because this patch instantly change. If you change a text, it will render a new image instantly and pass it on to the billboard patch, which renders it to the screen. So in mimoLive, we used to have input fields, so we can change text dynamically within mimoLive. So we need a definition for that input. And this is done with input splitters, input splitter patches. So I can drag and drop again another input splitter here, patch, and I need to define what type of splitter this is. Currently it's undefined, so I open up the patch inspector again, and it will say in the settings, I want to have that this is a string input. Can close the inspector again, and the string input should output its text to the string input of the image with string. So the input splitter here passes on its text to the image with string patch, and then this passes it on to the billboard and will draw it. And to have an actual input field in mimoLive, we need to publish this input splitter to the world. And we do that by, actually we do it by right clicking on that patch itself. And it gives up this, it gives us this context menu where we can say we want to publish this input and we want to call it text, for example. So that text we are giving here, the text name, will be shown in mimoLive later on as the name of the input field. So now you see that the input actually has a green dot, which means this is published to the world. Okay, so we can, so this finally makes a very simple hello world sample on how to create a layer for mimoLive. We now need to save it and to install it into mimoLive to see how it works. So I save it to my desktop. I got my text document here. That's the Quartz Composer document. And I can import that into mimoLive. So I start mimoLive. And in the file menu, you have all those import options. And import layer composition will import a certain composition to be a layer. So I choose my text to be imported. mimoLive give me an okay that everything worked out, and now I can use this layer already in my document. So I create a new mimoLive document as usual. Now it also reads in the layer we created, and I can find it already in my layer repository up here. So to add a layer to a mimoLive document, you click on that plus button. And in the search bar, we can search for my text. Here we are. So you can see this layer is already there, and you can drag and drop it to the layer stack. So no text is currently rendered because we left that empty, but you can see the text label is already there and the text field. So I can enter another text. Here we go. And it's already rendered to my preview. And once I switch the layer live, I have my Hello World sample layer in my program out. So,
Hey. First layer.
Johannes already did it.
Already did it.
Great. So,
Achim, there was a quick question about the QCLua plugin. Where does it have to go? Can you just double click the Lua thing you download, or do you have to?
You have to manually install it. This is just the plugin itself as a zip file. You unzip the file and you get the Quartz Composer plugin. And this plugin needs to go into your root library folder, graphics, and Quartz Composer plugins. Here, if this folder or if any of the folder structure isn't present on your system, you can just create it. You just need to make sure that the writing is correct, all the spaces and minus and what have you. But you will certainly find out once you are in Quartz Composer and search for that in the library. Let me just do that. Search for Lua. Then there should be this Lua script patch. And if it isn't there, then something is wrong with your installation. I hope that clears that. So a few more things to really finalize the layout. So what we just did was creating a Quartz Composer document that runs inside mimoLive, but currently mimoLive doesn't really know anything about that document and about the layer. So we need to add 3 important keys to the Quartz Composer document. So let me just close this window and this document again. We're heading back to the Quartz Composer editor. There is an edit information menu item. We get another option to add more information, and there are 3 important keys you need to add so that you are a good citizen in mimoLive. So the first key is a layer identifier. All our keys starts with TV underscore, and then there are some names. So in this case, actually I added a new key with the plus button, and I want to change the name of that property to TV underscore layer identifier. Actually, those keys are documented on our homepage, so I can show you later the documentation for that. So you can copy and paste it. That's much easier. Usually we use the reverse domain name to define an identifier for us. So in my case, I would name the identifier com, Boinx, mimoLive, layer. My text. So this is not very important, but it is important that it is unique. It's not important that it's a reverse domain name, but it's important that this is unique to your layer and doesn't conflict with any other in the world, because that's how mimoLive decided which layer is which. It doesn't look actually at the name of the file. It only compares the layer identifiers. So there's another key property that is, sorry, this is copy and paste. That's the layer protocol version. This needs to be a number, and it currently needs to be set to 1. So we never did change that, but who knows, one day we may change the protocol version, and then we can't distinguish if this is actually working with your layer. So make sure that you add this one. And the last one is the layer version. That's a very interesting property. This layer version is also a number. And let's start with 1, for example. That's our first layer, version layer. The layer of the version is 1. So why is the version important? mimoLive actually stores the layer composition, the document, with every document you save. So if you transport the document to another computer and open it up, you don't need to install the layer, your custom layer. It will be transported with the document anyways. However, if you update your layer and you want to automatically replace that in the document, then you need to increase the layer version. Let's say in the document there is the layer version 1.3, and you install a new layer to mimoLive, which is 1.4, then mimoLive can would know that it can replace the layer that is in the document with the one that you installed with a 1.4, because the version tells mimoLive that it not changed that much. It just maybe a bug fix or some minor changes. However, if you increase the layer version at the minor, the major number, let's say you have a new layer that's 2.4, then mimoLive won't update the layer in the document. It will use the layer in the document because it will know that in the document it's 1.3 and you have a layer 2.4. Those layers are not compatible, so you can't exchange them automatically. So the user needs to do that. He needs to remove the old layer and add the new one if they want to. So that's the important thing with layer versions. So we want to confirm that, and of course save that again. So saving this document actually will save it to my desktop again. But I imported already this layer to mimoLive. And so mimoLive doesn't know about that I updated actually the composition on my desktop. So what I need to do, I need to re-import the layer to mimoLive. But I'm a lazy developer, so I don't want to do that all over and over again. So I come up with a different type of how to set this up. So we need to know where mimoLive stores actually the layers it's imported, and then we will replace that with a new file. So I show you how you can find that. Again, you need to go to the Finder, Go, select Go, and select Go to Folder. Again, go to your user library, starting with the tilde, and open that folder. And you can see this is a hidden folder in your home directory. And find the group containers folder. In the group container folder, there are a bunch of strange named folders. That's a requirement by Apple. So our folder, all our folders of mimoLive starts with those numbers and letters. And currently there is one folder that contains the imported layer. So here you see that's the new document on my desktop, and that's the imported one from earlier on, but I want to have that automatically updated once I save it to the document to the desktop. So what I do is actually I delete this file. It's old anyways. I create by right-clicking on my desktop document. I get this context menu. I will create an alias, and this alias will always point to my document on the desktop. I can put it in the layers folder of mimoLive, and so mimoLive always looks to or loads the document from my desktop. However, I need to make sure that this file has a QTC ending. If it's not QTC, mimoLive won't see this file. So this is important to remember. So once I saved my document to the desktop, I now need to restart mimoLive. That's important because only at start time mimoLive reads in all the layers. So that's all I need to do. I need to quit mimoLive and start it again. And once I create a new document or reload an old one, my new layer will be loaded and I can use it right away. Here we go. Okay, now we are a good citizen in mimoLive. mimoLive knows the layer by its identifier. It knows which version it's running, and it can handle the layer when you save it and restore it from a document the correct way. So this is basically the basics, the easiest layer we can create, and from here we can get crazy. So are there any questions already? Is everything okay?
So I'll take a shot at it. So
Sure.
can I build full-on images in Quartz? So a lot of times I have to do custom backgrounds.
Sure.
And okay, so one of the things I told Oliver in the last open office event last Saturday is that I need to be able to use that that 5-up split screen. So a lot of times what I need to do is build a background with the client's maybe sponsor logos on the bottom, and then I would like to be able to move that 5-up split screen inwards so to expose the logos and the design of the background. So I guess I will build that background in Quartz first and then bring it in.
It depends actually, because mimoLive already has a lot of layers that can display a graphic or a movie file. So for this particular goal, I think you don't need actually to create a certain layer for that on your own.
Okay, so I guess what I need to do in mimoLive is create a blank canvas, put in my layer on top of that layer, and then I guess sometimes I just need to stack layers essentially. So that's what
Correct.
into mimoLive.
So let me just try that. So we see the split screen layer.
Sorry about that. I turned my camera back on.
Sure, no problem.
Let's try the 5-up. There we go.
Okay, so actually there are two 5 options. So the 5-up tries to fill the complete screen. And if you use 5 in a row, then you have the option to adjust the insets.
So I could actually change those boxes to, let's say, a 16:9. Well, I guess you can change it to 16:9.
So currently the canvas itself is 60:9. So what
so
you want to have there?
Achim, just let me jump in there for a second. Let's keep this to George. Let's keep this to Quartz Composer.
That's fine.
Things. Achim, just let me explain to Achim. So basically, what the problem for George is that the 5-up layout. If you bring that up again, yeah, you can add a gap, and you can make the gap wider so the background can shine through. So if you do exactly, and then you turn off the background color, and then you can see the background. Yeah, that just turn it off, the background off, no background. So so now the layers below show through. But now the problem is that this doesn't really look nice. We need to add also an insert to the border around, so we don't have just a gap between the 5 things, but also around the
those are different layouts then.
You could tweak this with a presenter layer.
Yeah,
like this here. Like this here.
I mean, let's keep this to Quartz Composer. Maybe Achim can show. Maybe Achim, can you add a border to this split screen? Is that a lot of work, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah, that's not so easy to do. Yeah, if you maybe we can just check on that. If you want to change files or layers already installed in mimoLive, you need to save them first to get your hands on. So for example, the split screen layer, you select that, and in the layer repository, and you can right click on it, and there is a menu to export a layer composition, and this will let you save this split screen to the desktop. So I can rename it, for example, to my split screen, and the layer is already on my desktop here, and you can see this is just also a Quartz Composer file, and once I double click it, you will see what's inside here. So it's quite dense here on what is this about? Okay, won't resize. However, yeah, you may need to understand how that.
Bug that the Facebook thing fixes, right?
Yeah, currently I'm not sure. I actually implement is running, so.
Okay, don't worry about it. I thought I had to use Quartz to actually build a background, but now I know I don't. But don't let me take up your time. You could continue on.
Okay.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Sure. Okay, so this is one way to get your hands on already created layers, and maybe you can learn from them. You can add to them. And reinstall them to mimoLive, so you can change behavior of already existing layers, of course. Yeah, one thing I mentioned was there are the inputs and the keys. We have already seen those three here, and there are a lot more. There are a lot more keys and definitions. So that the composition can get more information from mimoLive and tell mimoLive more about it and control mimoLive even, and on the other hand get more information from mimoLive, and maybe mimoLive can control the layer a bit more. And there we have a documentation for it on our webpage. It's docs.mimo.live. That's the base of the documentation, and there you will find in the table of content, you will find at the bottom customize layers, and there is a long page about all kind of parameters that can be feed into your composition by mimoLive. And also there's a long list of parameters that you can output to control mimoLive, all sorts of things. Video, yeah, the one important thing would be how to get video and process video, for example. A lot of text. And we can have a demo on that if you want to. So I want to actually I want to get an image and present this on screen rather than having a text. So I can switch this input field, and that text, I don't want that anymore. And I get a new input splitter. And that input splitter again needs to be switched from virtual, meaning any kind, to a certain one. So I want to have an image. And I can name that. I publish this input to mimoLive, to the world, and want to name it, for example, video source. So now mimoLive knows that there should present an option to select a video source, and the image will just come in here on this end, and I can connect it to that billboard, and the billboard will display that image However, that would be rather boring because it will just present the image. So I want to have a little fun and show you how the processing works. So again, in the patch library, I am searching for integrator. This is a patch that integrates a value over time and adds it over time. So let's say I want to add 1 in 1 cycle and add this or connect this output to the rotation. So you can see it counts up every second. It counts 1 value up, and this will result in a rotation. And actually, I can show that to you in mimoLive, in Quartz Composer already, because we can import images to the Quartz Composer file as well. So I don't need to add them in mimoLive if I know that they will be static anyways. So for example, I have my mimoLive image here. That's the application icon. And it's a PNG file which has transparent pixels. So you can see at the canvas that some portions are actually transparent. You can see the checkerboard through. And we don't need that layer anymore because we want to run that image directly with our billboard. So you see if I want once I connect the image output to that image input of the billboard, the connection to the image splitter from early on will be disconnected. So now my image is the one that is shown and rendered by the billboard. And slowly it's turning. Maybe we need to speed it up a little bit, use higher values. So now you can see that it's rotating slowly. But we can do that, of course, with any view, any video source in mimoLive. So that's why I created this image splitter, the image splitter, and I will connect it back. So we don't need this image anymore. And the image splitter now will be an input in mimoLive. So a little bit crowded here with the windows. Let's just close some of them. mimoLive, I don't know. I need to quit it anyways and restart it again. In order to load the document, the layer, and then don't forget to save this layer again on the desktop. And remember, we have the alias file in the hidden library folder, and mimoLive will, after a restart, it will read in the new composition. So now I add my layer again. It's still called my text, but we can add and select the camera view here or placeholder. And you can already see it's turning. And once I switch it on, it will turn in my program out as well. So so you can see there are many opportunities and ways to get creative with layers. You can manipulate the images, the video sources in the composition before it gets rendered to the screen. There are a lot of patches to learn, and yeah, that's so from the first experience, it's to create the first layer. I guess that's it. So let's see if you have some creative ideas. Maybe we can just create a new layer from scratch and see how far we can get, or do you have another questions?
So mimoLive does not know what it's rendering.
Correct. mimoLive is
okay.
okay. mimoLive is just calling the layer. It's feeding in the parameters, the input fields, and then it's just calling the composition, the Quartz Composer framework, and let it do its job. So you can create anything in a layer, and mimoLive doesn't know about anything that's going on there.
Okay.
So maybe we can we can talk about the coordinate system in Quartz Composer, because this is quite unique. As you may know, mimoLive is able to create documents of different aspect ratios. Almost any aspect ratio, like 60:9, 4:3, even portrait, or something completely different. And your layer needs to adapt to this, because the canvas you're rendering to will also change automatically once you change the aspect ratio in mimoLive. So maybe I can get back to my my image here and just have the image drawn, so we can work on that, and I can explain that to you in how it works in Quartz Composer. So you see, actually the rendering, the output render is almost a square, so I can square it, and I can tweak it around, like make it 60:9 or 4:3 or portrait, and you see that the width currently of the image is adapting to the pixels, but the height, it doesn't change. So how does that work? So in Quartz Composer, the definition of the screen is, and the coordinates we are talking about, is always -1 on this end on the x-axis and +1 on that axis, on that screen side. So 0, 0 is always in the center, and the height of that will change. So in this case, the y-axis, it's starting at the bottom with, for example, in this case, maybe -2 to 0 and to +2, but still the x-axis will always go from -1/0 to 1. So if you need to adapt to this change, keep in mind that this coordinate system will change to the aspect ratios. And in this case, you see that the billboard patch renders the image at a width of 1, which means the screen is 2 Quartz Composer units in the width, because it goes from -1 to 1. That's 2 units. But the rendering happens only in width 1 unit, and that makes about half the screen. So once I change that value, I can open up the patch inspector. I can change this value, for example, to 2. And now the image is in the width of always full screen. It may be out of screen in the y-axis, of course, because this won't adapt. But this is what about the width. And the specialty of the billboard patch actually is that you can, there's another option here, setting, and you can switch from auto height, which means it calculates the height of the image automatically. You can go to auto width, is the other way around. There's a custom size, so you specify the dimensions of the image, or it can render the image in the real size, which means that the pixel resolution actually is held up. So now you can see the image doesn't scale because Quartz Composer knows how big this image is. Currently it's 256 pixels in square, and so it will render it always the same size. This may not be a good idea for your layer to do so. Actually, it depends, of course, but if you are running your layer in 60 by 9, but in a 720p video, then this may look quite nice. But once you just change the pixel resolution, but keeping the aspect ratio to 1080p, then the image will be shrink down in the program out, and you probably don't want to do so. So yeah, keep in mind there are different coordinate systems, and the horizontal coordinate is always -1 to 1. And why is that? Because Quartz Composer actually is a 3D rendering engine, and it can render 3D objects, and actually you're looking with a camera to a scene, and this scene is a 3D scene with a field of view of I guess 90 degrees and a certain distance, and that makes up that coordinate system. So there are also patches for rendering in 3D, for example a cube. So I have one. This one is just a demo file. I can see that because there's a path. So this is a correct one. This renders a cube. Not very spectacular because it's just white borders. So or white sides. So I add all my image to all the sides. Left image, right image, back image, top image, and so on. And now I want to make it a little bit smaller. In the patch inspector, there's width and height, and I can change this 0.5, 0.5, and 0.5. Thus, this makes a nice cube. And again, I can use my iterator variable to rotate it. So there are the rotation inputs, and you can see this is actually a square, a cube that is rendered in 3D. So you can do a lot of things also in 3D in mimoLive. And changing the position, of course, will reveal our other render billboard. So any more questions? If not, I can go on with some specialities and show, for example, how how mimoLive is communicating with a layer on a simple base. So one thing to keep in mind.
Achim, we have a question from Adam.
Sure.
If Adam, do you want to unmute yourself and ask it? So yeah.
Hi there. Thank you. This is black magic, my friend. You're you need a pointy hat and a Merlin magician's hat. This is like just I don't know how not to swear, but it's, I mean, wow. You've unlocked a whole world of possibility in my creative mind, and I'm guessing where is a good first place? If I was going to do something just to start, what's kind of something I could do that's, because I'm guessing that I can't break mimoLive by just shoving a layer in. So what can I do? You know, kick the wheels, try, do stuff. But what's something that I can do that isn't going to end up with me looking to end it all?
I don't know. Did you watch this meeting from the beginning?
Unfortunately, I was on a call. I parachuted in. I'm in the UK. I kind of was here about 20 past 9 your time.
I see. So because I started off showing really step by step how you can create your own layer from the beginning. So maybe you want to see this again in the recording, because we are recording this session.
Okay, perfect.
And this is a step by step to actually give you the tools, or you need to download some tools and create your first layer. So I think that would help you a lot to get started.
That sounds awesome. That sounds really, really good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
well, I have a question.
Yeah, Johannes, go ahead.
If I have two input splitters, how can I combine them with a switch, for example?
The inputs need to be the same type. So I guess you are referring to images. Okay, so let's have another input splitter. Drag that over and also changes in the patch inspector from virtual to image. Okay, now I have another input splitter. Maybe I also give it an input at mimoLive. So I right click on the patch, click on publish inputs, and rename that to the first one was video source. This is let's say video source B or whatever. So now I have two input splitters, and to select one of those, you can use a multiplexer patch. Multiplexer patch. Here we go. This multiplexer patch can switch between different sources and different inputs. So first of all, we want to also tell this multiplexer that it will switch images. So that makes a lot of sense to make it safer to work with. And you can specify how many inputs it should switch. Now you see there is one source index input that will tell which of the sources will coming out at the output. So I will connect this one to the source 0 and that to the source 1. And we can have as many as we want. So maybe we can, oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. I will add in the settings, I can increase this number to 3, for example. So it makes, maybe it makes more sense to see that. And I can connect the output again, because currently, now that we define this multiplexer to be an image multiplexer, I can connect that output to my billboard. And now I have an index on that multiplexer, and that index tells which of the sources will be routed through. So if I switch this from 0 to 1, again, I need to open the patch inspector. I can switch this to 1. then the source number 1 will be outputted here. And of course, I want to have some kind of input also on the mimoLive side. Or do you, Johannes, do you have some logic in your head that you want to achieve with this?
Yes, auto switching. Auto switching. Sometimes it's very hard for me to do the lessons and to do the switching. So my big dream is to have an automatic switcher, not like the video switcher, the automatic video switcher. It should switch through several other things, and I think I read that when I place the laser, the layer at the end of the document, I'm able to grab have access to other layers that are above.
Yeah, you can actually you can transport information from layers below to layers above. So a layer below can output data, text and numbers, and a layer above can grab that information and work on it. So if you have,
I can grab information from above, and not from the bottom.
From below, only from below. Yeah, we are working from below to the top, and so you're propagating data from lower layers to the upper layers. And this information is erased for the next layer cycle, layer rendering cycle. Yeah, but I don't know if do you want to have an automatic switcher like actually there is an auto switcher layer that switches automatically through some sources, but certainly we can.
It should switch. Finally, it should switch something like this, between this and that and that and this and that. It should switch through the whole document, and this is what it should do finally. But on the first hand, I want to make an atom switcher that is able to switch later, about 6 frames or 7 frames later, so I can use virtual perspectives. And the switching with mimoLive is in sync. This is something I want to do, but yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I have to analyze the atom switcher layer as a starting point, I think, and then yes, I want to make it set compatible.
That's a tough thing.
One isn't set compatible.
Okay, I see.
I have no idea how to do this.
Okay.
But who knows?
Yeah, so there are several things to keep in mind with this project. First, I want to mention already, let's start create a new document here. So even that you have one layer in the layer stack, there are actually 2 layers rendered. So you have one layer that is one instance actually is rendering the preview, and a second instance is rendering the output. So and both don't know each other, so they can't. They can exchange data because we implemented the protocol for it, but usually those are independent. The preview layer and the program layer, they are independent. And if you create something like an atom switcher, then you need to keep in mind that you have 2 instances talking to the external hardware at the same time. So you need to make sure that one doesn't. Actually, you don't want to have the preview layer to talk to your atom hardware, but only the program out. And you can do so, or you can decide so by a certain flag we feed into your into the composition. So let's go to the documentation and find out which one that is. So there are, where can I find it? So there is this preview mode input. It's a Boolean. It says yes or no. The documentation says, or don't jump to the documentation. Preview mode. Here we go. Can be used to tell the composition that is in preview mode. Yeah. So I copy the text here because it's important that my input field exactly is named as this one, so that mimoLive knows what to fill in there. So we create a new input splitter. This input splitter should be from the documentation. It says it should be a Boolean. Okay, so I changed the Boolean to the splitter to a Boolean splitter, and now I right-click on it and publish the input again. And now I fill in the name exactly as it's written in the documentation, TV in _ preview mode. And now I can decide which of the instances I'm currently. If it says yes, you can give it also a nice name, preview mode. If it says yes, then I am in preview. On the other hand, I'm not. So let's see if we can make use of it. So how can we do this? Oh, I just use the preview mode and connect it to the enable flag of the billboard. So this means that only in preview mode, this billboard will be enabled. So it only will be rendered in the preview of mimoLive, of that layer. So heading back, it would be rendered in this section. And
so
this one
to do two different outputs. One
correct.
for the preview and one for the program. The thing that I want to do is just a sender layer, a layer with different variants. The first variant is sending to channel 1 or is activating channel 1. The second is channel 2. The third is channel. Just a sender layer, but I need a video layer that is able to have before switching, before how should I say, before all the graphics by mimoLive is put together with the ATEM video. I need a delay because it takes time that the switcher is switching. So I have to when I want to do something like this, just for an example, I want to do something like this, then the ATEM isn't reacting immediately, so I have blinkers on screen.
Okay.
The camera perspective 2 is switching to 3, for example, and then I have a blinker from 2 till the ATEM is reacting, and so I want to do a delay for other layers, so I can how should I say so I can make it in sync, so I can bring it in sync, the cut of the ATEM and the cut of mimoLive.
I see. So this may involve a lot of work for you, I think.
Maybe, but if it's worth.
Sure.
We're talking about virtual camera perspectives. So I could have one camera, and then I could have 4 perspectives: a total view, a left side view, a right side view, and a middle view.
Okay, so we can do this in one layer. We can try.
this is not the problem. The problem is that I cannot sync the layers of mimoLive to the switching process.
Yeah, I understand that. However, this is actually
I have to make it by my own.
Yeah. I can give you another hint on that. Excuse me.
Can I activate with a Quartz Composer file? Can I activate another layer in mimoLive?
Unfortunately, that's not possible currently. However,
can I
recently
send it afterwards with a web API or something like this with the Quartz Composer?
Yes.
Then maybe this is the solution.
Yeah, for you,
I think this is the most easiest way.
I think for you, this could actually be a solution. Johannes mentioned the web API. So mimoLive has a built-in HTTP server, and you can access the document and endpoints in the document, like layers, sources, and switches, and what have you, and update them or read them. That's how we create the remote control, actually. So the remote control for mimoLive is running in a web browser, and it's just a web app talking to mimoLive via HTTP. And you can have an HTTP plugin in mimoLive, in Quartz Composer actually, and fetch an HTTP request and do an HTTP request, and in turn that will trigger layers in mimoLive. However, the cycle is not, I would say, not very stable in terms of how many frames this will take until your HTTP request is performed. So maybe you can tweak it, but you can't rely on it, because it's going a long way around mimoLive through an HTTP server until asynchronously hits the layer stack and switch a layer live, for example. But you can try. Certainly, it's worth a try. So you can use one layer and give that layer the information of the other layers to switch them on, how to switch them on with an HTTP request. And then this layer will actually activate other layers on your behalf. So maybe you can try it. Or you can
when it's working, it's working. If not, it's not working.
I don't know. I never tried my own.
I need to delay mimoLive's action for 6 frames when I use 25 images per second. And and yes, and I want to have it glitch free.
I understand.
Yes. Yeah. But thank you very much for this information, because this brought new ideas. Thanks so much.
Welcome. So, are there any questions? Any more questions?
It's Adam.
How many video input? So sorry.
Adam, go ahead.
Thank you. I've just seen your clock. Actually, I realise you're Eastern Central European time, so you're not a million miles away from me. So
yeah.
It's one relating to, and you may have answered it already. So if you have, please forgive me. I haven't obviously had a chance to see the recording.
No problem.
When you create so you get the layer stack and you get the layer sets. When I click on the layer set, is it possible to have things that happen but at a delayed kick-in? So for example, if you had a layer set that was, say, going main camera, and you wanted the counter 4 seconds and then a lower third to appear, because obviously when you click on the layer set go, it all goes straight away. Is there a delay either within the creation of the layer set or within the settings of the layer stack, or is that something that I would need to export and do in Quartz editor thing that you were just showing us a second ago?
Currently there's no delay option for layer sets. All the actions that the recall button do are immediate. And certainly this is a request we hear often, that there should be some kind of more automation, that you have a timeline and you can create multiple events that triggers multiple layers at a different time. So we are thinking of that, and I think sometime we will actually implement such thing.
Thank you. I mean, I do appreciate that you're working, when I've worked with developers in the past, any sentence that starts the word just or simply, could you just put in followed by simply have a border around this? And the answer is yes, but it's not simple and it's not a just. So
yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a response. Is it a better workaround? So at the moment, I'll have a layer set, and then I'll have the computer, the control pad, and I'll just have blooming big buttons to push. So if I'm doing looking to camera, then I can click layer set to layer set to layer set without having to look away from camera. I mean, that's kind of the practical workaround that I've done. Is that, in terms of the best thing for the moment?
I would think so, yes.
Brilliant. Now I am happy. Thank you.
Okay, great.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt you, Johannes. Thank you.
Yeah. Johannes, did you have a question again?
No. It was the same, exactly the same thing.
Okay, great. So I see and feel the need for it. So let's see how we can proceed with this. Actually, the HTTP API gives you a lot of options to do such things externally. You can use AppleScript, for example, to trigger layers in a row you specify, and there's also some documentation and an example of that in our documentation, I guess. So let's see if we can find it quickly. I'm already in docs.mimo.live. That's a documentation of mimoLive, and there is, we have it in HTTP API, examples of API usage, and below there, the first part is how to get the correct HTTP call, and some examples how to switch layers live or switch them off. And if you scroll down a little bit, there is also a section about AppleScript, and here is an AppleScript that allows you to set, for example, the text of a layer, of a certain layer, of a lower third in this case. But definitely you can also have switch on and off layers over time. So here's a more complex example that switches on and off a layer on the hour for, I think, 3 minutes or so. I don't know exactly. I need to read the documentation again, what I programmed here, but with the delay, you can delay the Apple script and do some kind of automation. However, currently it's not possible to trigger Apple script within mimoLive, so maybe we should add that at one point, so you can create Apple scripts and trigger them within from your remote control, for example. So that makes, if that makes sense to you.
Thank you.
Okay. So are there other questions? Did we finally do that? No, I think Johannes, that makes your point anyways.
Yes, indeed. There is one more question. It's because of now the new knowledge about the Quartz Composer thing and the API. Can I? Is it possible to have a user folder for the web control?
What do you mean by that? What do you want to do?
Just an area that is compatible with the local host / user / whatever, that we can directly use scripts there and don't have to install an extra web server.
Are we now switching over to general mimoLive questions, or?
No, it's not a general question, because it's now I try to decide what techniques should I use. Should I use the Quartz Composer thing?
The HTTP API is actually not a web server, so it can't serve files. It's just it responds to HTTP requests, but there's actually not a file-based system behind that. So it's just basically
the web control is completely dynamic, whatever, but it's not hosted on a server.
Exactly. So it has its own HTTP server, and it's only responding to HTTP requests. So it's not. And it's not serving files. So
it's only reacting to API calls we designed.
So the web control is not the full-featured web server.
No.
The web control. There's a web control application that comes is built in mimoLive, and that's some JavaScript files, and that's the only files the mimoLive server will.
Okay, so there are no dynamic things like PHP or something like this.
No.
Okay. No, that's all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good. So, are there more questions?
All right. So I think Achim, then we'll wrap it up. Or do we have some more things up your sleeve?
We could go crazy. However, I think that's enough food for thought for the moment, and maybe we can do it again and have the people learn a little bit about the layers, and in the next class we can see if we can discuss more in depth.
So I think I will just stop the recording now and thank everybody for coming, and we'll stick around for answering more of the general questions, Adam. So just thanks everybody for coming, and that we'll post the recording and you'll be able to watch it later. All right, thank you.